Thank you so much for your time again, Rita. So, just to get us started, the story of David is a biblical story, and this film is an adaptation of that, which follows him from his humble beginnings as a shepherd through to becoming an anointed king. You know, it's a story that so many people know and are very familiar with. And how did you find the process of turning such a well-known story into an adaptation for such a contemporary audience? And how did you find the balance between honoring the actual story, the word of God, while still making David feel like a fresh and a contemporary take?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's super nice to be chatting to you. So the journey for us was a really long one, and a part of that was finding the right medium, which ended up being animation, because for the longest time we wanted to do it as like a big live action film, and so there's a lot in the story of David in the Bible, and a lot of it is not family friendly at all. and so for us, once we landed on the idea of doing it as an animation, it was okay, which part of the story are we going to tell? And so when we first started writing it, Brent, the screenwriter, he asked us to do like a timeline of David's life. And so it was like, okay, he was born here, he was this age when he killed Goliath, and then right up to kind of the end of his life. And then we were like, okay, which chunk of that is going to be the most appropriate and the most appealing, right, to a contemporary audience and for our particular family audience. And so for us, and you nailed it in the beginning when you were speaking, we chose shepherd boy to king. Mm-hmm. So we said, okay, these are the times, this is the time of his life that we're going to focus on. And so what happens in there that's appropriate and that's engaging and that's, fresh and fun. Because for us, we wanted it to appeal to families, and we wanted it to appeal to like a global audience, and we wanted it to appeal to Christians and non-Christians alike, And so it was a challenge, to be honest, like getting the script done, and it took us like literally a decade, to get it into the zone where we felt like it would be appealing to families, to boys, to girls, to young and to old, to believers, to non. And so thankfully there's so much in there, to draw from, but there are definitely things that we had to also just come up with creative solutions, but the whole time as well, like, with the faith background and belief, it was like, okay, God, what do we put in here? How do we nail this? And and so particularly like the ending, with the song at the end, in the Bible it talks about like praise being a weapon, and and praise just being powerful, right? And opening the doors. And so just kind of your faith also gives you ideas, right, of how to creatively tell the story. And so it was a journey in many ways, and for us we always say, that someone, I can't remember who said it, but art imitates life. And so for us as this tiny studio, going up against the world, in terms of like who we want to see this film, and like just such a big story, we and so much happened. And it's like personally in each of our lives with us as a studio, COVID happened in the middle of it. It was like we faced a lot of giants while we were making this film, but praise God that ultimately he gets the victory. And so the film is now coming out, which is so amazing for us.
Super exciting. Yeah. And you sort of touched on this already, but the film did take over a decade to make. And I just wanted to hear from your perspective on a personal level, what was it about this particular story that you thought was so worthwhile to bring into fruition, despite it taking such a long time to bring to the screen?
Yeah, it's interesting. So Phil and Jackie Cunningham, who run the studio, so Phil and Brent were the co-directors of the story, but Phil and Jackie own the company, and I've been working with them for 24 years. And when I first met them, David was the story that they wanted to tell. Phil has always been inspired by the life of David. In fact, previously, probably 30 years ago, he wrote a book called The Eighth Son, which was the story of David, son of Jesse. And so it's been always the most inspiring character in the Bible for him. And if you they just live life very courageously and fearlessly. Like Phil is always saying, like, no fear, like we kind of, one of the nicknames, every project has like a code name. So one of our nicknames for development of David was Here Be Dragons, right? And Phil always tells the story about how in the early days before maps and stuff, the guys used to or they had a flat map and they would write HBD on uncharted territory, like here be dragons, like don't sail this far because you'll meet dragons, right? So Phil and Jackie are like, let's sail there. Like, yes, there's dragons, but like God is with us, you know? And so they both are just really fearless, courageous characters. Like Phil was a farmer. He was, you know, before he was a filmmaker. Jackie was a geneticist. And one day Phil was, you know, he just had this, he wanted to tell stories, and he just kind of rolled over to Jackie and was like, should we start a movie company? You know, like, let's, you know, stop this farming stuff. And she was like, yeah, sure. You know, like, like just, they're always just so gung ho, and they live life with just this expansive faith. And so for them, making the story of David is just like, they just wanted to say to people, look, this is the God we believe in. Like, you can be fearless and you can be courageous, and he is with you, you know? And so it's wonderful working with people like that, and you know, living life with people around you who are like so enthusiastic about life and just so fearless, you know, and take big risks and just trust, you know. And I think David is the character in the Bible that most resonated with them. And so they long wanted to tell the story and just to encourage people to, like, you know, to live lives of faith and courage. And so, yeah, so it was really awesome being on that journey, you know, with them. And then now here we are, and it's coming out. So it's been amazing.
And that's really inspiring to hear, just hearing about that level of courage and faith and just fearlessness. And I think it's something that we can all adapt in our own lives. And you've touched on, you know, how working with such people full of courage and faith rubbed off onto you. But I just want to hear in a bit more detail, on a personal level, how did working on David change or even deepen the way that you understood David's story, or even your own faith as well?
Yeah, no, it did hugely. You know, we went through a lot, like making this film, you know, in terms just like in the business and all personally as well. You know, I think one of the most profound things for me that I learned along this journey is that everybody's going through something, right? You know, we ended up working with about 450 people on this project. And I love, so Jackie always says it's always people over process for us, right? And people over product. So the people are the most important thing. And so Jackie really always takes time to get to know the people and to know their story and to know what they're going through. And she has a big belief in that everybody brings something to the project, right? What I'm going through, what you're going through, you know, every animator, every person on the team has dealt with something, and they bring a piece of them to the project, and that's what makes it so beautiful. And so, you know, it's less about your talent and what you're bringing in terms of, you know, to the film, and more about who you are and what you bring to the team, you know. And I think that somehow that does make a film feel extra special, because it's personal then, you know, and in doing that. And so we have these moments as a team where we get to know each other better. And it's not about your output, it's about, you know, your input and who you are and what you bring, and just getting to know so many people from all over the world. We literally had people in almost every time zone working on this project, you know. So different geographies, different ages, different skill sets, you know, and just getting to know people, and even myself personally, and like the things we go through, you know, personally. And often people don't bring their hardships, right? It's like, everything's good, I'm fine, every day is a great day, I have no drama, I have no problems. And it's like, guys, everybody's going through something, you know. And we've had calls as a team where, you know, someone will come on and say, I'm sorry, I just have to share, like, you know, my newborn didn't sleep last night, and if I put her down, she just screams and cries, and I've had 3 days of a crying baby in my ear, and I cannot see the wood for the trees, and I'm sorry if I'm dropping the ball, but like, this is what I'm dealing with, you know. And then someone else will say, oh, I'm so sorry, well, you know, this happened to me. Like, during production, Phil snapped his Achilles tendon, and then a year later, I snapped my Achilles tendon. And this is like 6 weeks on your back, foot up, you know, kind of stuff. And I remember it was like the last 6 weeks of production, and I'm like lying flat on my back, and we were dealing with all the, you know, with all the US press at the time, and I'm literally like doing interviews on my back with my leg up, you know, lying on like in the thing. And so, you know, everybody goes through something, and just mentally being in that space and trying to hold it together, and you like smile and wave for the cameras, you know, but inside you're like, why did this happen, and why now? And like, you know, but I found when we started talking about just being real about where we were personally, you know, it was amazing. You realize everybody's going through something, and then you're like, okay, I need to just be kind, right? Like, everyone must just be kind to each other. And that has just stuck with me through production and beyond, you know. And you see people who look like they've got everything, that everyone's holding it together, like, oh, this person just looks like she's always so put together, or everything's always going right with her. And then when you really get to connect with people, it's like, wow, she's going through incredible heartache, actually. And that's just a brave face. And
Yeah.
so all that to say is, like, it's so important to be kind to people and to actually take the time to listen and hear, because I guarantee you, everybody is going through something.
Yeah.
And so it was a really, really beautiful thing that came out of the David Project for us.
Mm.
You know, because you work with people for so long, right? You actually really get to know
Know
each
them.
other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so lovely to hear how people were such a massive part of this process. It's quite refreshing to hear, especially in an industry like this. And touching on people, looking into the making of this film, I realized that Sunrise Animations is actually a studio based in Cape Town. And as someone of African descent myself, it was really just inspiring to see such a huge achievement come out from an African animation studio. So, on a personal level for you, what does it mean to see a South African studio telling a story of this scale to such a global audience?
You know what? It's been so wonderful, actually, because South Africa has a really amazing animation industry. Actually, yes, small, but like small but mighty. I think, you know, like powerful and passionate and enthusiastic. You know, and it's a really lovely community, is what it is. And so people are always, you know, building each other up and trying to help people, you know. And I think what for me, what was really important seeing is that for us, you know, we have a faith, right? And our belief is in the Bible, and we want to tell these stories that inspire people to live, you know, lives of courage and faith and all of that. And so it doesn't matter where you are or where you've come from, you know, if you've got a story to tell, like, your story will see the light of day, you know. And so, like, and also just the authenticity, right? Like, so for us, like, it was the faith, and that's authentic to us and who we are. And we were really, really passionate about, you know, telling this story. And so it doesn't matter where we are or where we're from. It just shows that, like, you know, just go for it, right? Take the big swings.
Yeah.
And your story will find its audience. So I'm a big believer in the authenticity of storytelling, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love how you've touched on that, because at Flip the Script, we're all about just highlighting really authentic stories and the authentic people behind those stories as well. So that really resonates with me.
Amazing.
And then just to sort of wrap up, you know, David has had such great commercial success globally. It's had a record-breaking opening for a faith-based animated film. I just wanted to know from your perspective, for anyone in the UK or in Ireland, you know, as the film comes out on the 21st of August, what is the one thing that you hope audiences who are familiar with the story, or those who don't have any sort of faith-based background, what do you hope that they take away from this story?
Yeah, so for me, the biggest thing would be for people, you know, as you say, of a faith or not. For me, the biggest thing is for them to be inspired and to live lives of courage, right? It's, you know, we're all in this together. We're all going through stuff, like, but have faith and be inspired. And there is a plan, you know, there's a plan for your life. There's a purpose, and just, you know, have faith, because it'll unfold as it should. And so I just really hope people are encouraged by the project, and walk out of the cinemas feeling, you know, feeling inspired to follow the light, and to, you know, one of the biggest, you know, the song for me, Shalom. I sing that so often, you know, if I'm struggling or not feeling the peace, you know, like, I sing that. So for me, it's as I really hope people feel encouraged, inspired, and feel peace, you know, feel a deep sense of peace when they're going through anything tough.
That's amazing. That's such a wonderful takeaway. And I was certainly inspired watching the film as well. David is one of my favorite characters and figures from the Bible. So thank you so much for putting this together and being a big part of such an amazing project. And thank you for so much of your time today. Yeah, it was really great chatting to you.
Such a pleasure. It was so nice to meet you. And I wish you all the very best. And thanks so much for your time as well.
Likewise.